Welcome to another episode of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. Very excited about today's guest, Talal Ali Ahmad, founder and CEO of a really exciting AI-based postoperative surgical site infection monitoring technology company called Predictive Care. Talal, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me today, Mike.
Yeah, fantastic. I really appreciate you making time to come on the show. You know, the surgical site infection space is near and dear to my heart. I started my career with Ethicon back in the day. We had the first technology we brought out was a company called or a product called Dermabond. Closure
hmm
Medical was the company that made it, and one of the big calling cards there was kind of sealing the wound. So theoretically, no bugs
hmm
could get in. Now, if there was already an infection, then obviously you're sealing that in. But we were very successful with that product, and then after that we got into selling sutures that actually were coated with antibiotics to prevent
hmm
surgical site infection along the suture line after the
Yeah.
wound was closed. So very familiar with the disease or the challenge, the problem you guys are trying to solve
hmm
from my own past. But why don't you just you've got a really interesting background. You came from what I would call traditional tech
hmm
and traditional tech in healthcare
Yeah.
as one of the founders of Approximy, which I believe is now a case study at Harvard Business School.
hmm
Um, and but I'd love to love for you to just tell the audience kind of how you got started with this and what the origin story was.
Yeah. So, thank you, Mike, for your time today. So, for my background, by training, I'm an engineer. So, I went to undergraduate school did an engineering in telecom, and I did my MBA. And I started in the telecom world with infrastructure, security, cloud solution when there was cloud, wasn't nobody knows what cloud means back then. And I spent a lot of time in telecom infrastructure in up to 2011 when I had my own company in voice over IP infrastructure, get acquired by a company in the South. And I took a year off. I decided what I'm going to do with my life now. Telecom is kind of becoming commodity, so I need to find something else. During the year off, I volunteered with a NGO here in Boston area called the Global Smile Foundation. I volunteer with them, travel overseas to Latin America, Middle East, and Africa. They performed, and they still do that, is a cleft lip and cleft palate surgery in the
Yep.
underserved market. And that's what's got my exposure to the medical field, hanging around with doctors and nurses, talking about what they see every day, what they do. And one of the things is, like I noticed in back then in 2014, whenever we travel, there's a line of people waiting for the surgery. And I ask him, I mean, what's going on here? There's enough doctors I see in the hospitals, enough surgeons. Why are the people waiting for you, for the team to come in? And they said, well, I mean, there's a lot of surgeons, but there's no enough surgeons know how to do this particular surgery. And that's when I get exposed to the medical technology, and that's what the proximity idea came from. We
Hmm.
decided to come up with a solution for them, how they can guide local surgeon perform the surgery. And telemedicine or telehealth or video conferencing was available back then, but it cost a lot of money. So I put my head down and said, okay, we have to find a solution where it helps the doctors to get train other doctors without spending millions of dollars on infrastructure. And that's where Proximy came to light. And I thought the solution was going to be only for Global Smile Foundation for NGOs only. But talking to the doctors and the surgeons, like, hey, listen, I can use the same technology back in the US because all the doctors were in the US. And that's why I met my co-founder, Proximy. So we built a technology to enable doctors in the US to train or guide the surgeon overseas. And that's what my exposure to medical technology and how the medical field was ripe and still ripe for new ideas to improve the outcome.
Sure.
Technically, I mean, we built it to improve the outcome. I exited approximately in 2020 myself, and I just okay, I sat down and said, "What do I want to do now?" And the idea this time is hit close to home. My son had a surgery, and he went. We brought him home. The doctor called the next day, said, "How's Nassim's doing?" We said, "He's doing okay, no problem." Said, "Okay, we'll see you in 10 days." 2 days later, he's complaining of pain. the wound looks red. So we
Yeah.
called the doctor and said, like, he's in pain. The wound looks red. And the doctor, actually, the nurse was there, said, like, how red is it? It's like, what do you mean, how red? It's red.
Right.
I
Right.
said, oh, comparing to today, yesterday and day before, I said, we don't remember what happened yesterday. Well, she said, if he's in that much pain and it looks red, then you need to bring him in. So we packed him in the car, go to the hospital, drove to Boston. They look at it, said, oh, it's normal. That's fine. Just give him more different medication this time. We went home, gave him the medication, but things didn't get better. Then 2 days later, said, like, he's not getting better. He's not sleeping well. He said,
Yeah.
okay, if he's in pain, the doctor's not here. You can go to emergency room and we'll send someone there. And I'm saying to myself, I must be a way to do this. I mean, we all
Right.
have smartphone. We all used to take a selfie with our smartphone. Why not use images to just send data to the doctor and the doctor look at it and say, okay, this is too red or it's okay, just give him different medication. And that's when the idea came up. Like we need to use something to deliver information to the doctor without bringing the patient every time there's a questions. And then we said instead of flooding the doctor with information, let's make sense of it before we send it. Like analyze the image, give them some heads up on the decision making, on the vital signs. So that's when this predictive healthcare came up. And I ran it by doctor, and I thought maybe first is a Talal issue. Talal didn't pay attention enough to the kid or to the wound, but apparently
Mhm.
it's the same issue everywhere and it's not the fault of the clinician or the doctor. It's when we go home as a post-op patient. I mean, we left with a stack of paper how to take care of yourself, your wound, and with little some support. In our case, my son, we had us to support him, but other people didn't have enough support to do that. And that's when they come, and the doctor doesn't know what's going on during the between day one of the surgery and the visit. So that's when I said, okay, we have to do something. I put my head down, talked to some engineers, said, hey, we can use machine learning AI to detect some information and send to the doctor. We built a prototype to see if this like we're on something or we're smoking something when we decided to do this.
Right.
So we did that. We without with like a very minimal user interface design. We just didn't want to see if it works. And
Yeah.
we it worked. And we showed to other people actually mostly on the mission, would you use this? And they said, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
this is even if people drive to the hospital, still, if I can avoid them half an hour trip to see me for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's good for me and good for them. For me, I can see different patient. For them, avoid them to find someone or ride to come to my clinic. And
Yeah.
and that's when we say, okay, we need to build this and make something out of it to improve the outcome for the patient at least, and also elevated the pressure on the doctor to see more patient when they don't need to.
Right. Yeah, and it's it's amazing to me. We had Bill Hunter. You probably know the name. He
Mhm,
was the CEO and founder of Angiotech, which developed the Taxa stent, and then now he's got Canary Medical, which is kind of they're building this smart implant platform.
yeah,
They've got the implant that goes in the Zimmer Persona IQ
mhm,
smart knee replacement. It's the first smart orthopedic implant out there. And, I've talked to him on several occasions and he said, he believes 5, 7 years from now, we're going to look back and go, it's unfathomable that we would send patients home and not, we would sew them up and send them home and not know if what we did to them is working. And
exactly.
especially when we have the means of doing so now, whether that is through a smart implant or in this case, a way to monitor the exterior of the wound, whatever
Yeah,
it is. And his point's a valid one. He said, when we go buy appliances now, you wouldn't think of buying a non-connected appliance. You would,
exactly.
who's gone out and bought a non-connected thermostat for their home in the last
Yeah,
5 years, right? No, you buy the Nest, and then when you're, you know, an hour away from your home, you might turn the heat on so it's
yeah,
warm when you get home or whatever. All of these things but the difference is now we have the technology to be able to do it. And then I think, the problem that you're trying to solve is an obvious one.
mm,
Patients are going to get surgical site infections. That's
yeah,
just, as much as certain hospitals will say they've got lower rates, some will say they've got higher rates. No physician will admit that they get infections,
yeah.
and frankly, they may believe that because if somebody gets an infection, they're probably not going to go back to that
No,
physician. They might go to a different physician, right? So they might not be aware of the infections that they're having with these patients. But I think what's unique about what you guys have done is you've created a programmatic approach
Hmm.
to manage that,
Yeah,
a systemized programmatic approach that, and now is probably a good time to jump into the tech, but that incorporates some AI, ML type
yeah,
technologies in it, to whereby it's, you're not just giving doctors just raw inputs, right, and forcing
exactly.
them to do all the thinking. You're automating some of that. Let's
Yeah,
jump into the tech. I think
yeah.
what would be really neat is to have you share kind of what these interfaces look like. What does the doctor see? What does the patient see? What's the workflow like? This is obviously all HIPAA compliant. It's all EMR integrated.
Yeah,
It's app based technology. I'm guessing the patient just gets the app loaded onto their smartphone when they leave the hospital. Is that the
correct.
workflow?
So the way we talk to a clinician, hospital admin, the way it was going to work better is that the visit before the surgery, the last visit before the surgery, that's when we train the patient and upload the application on their phone and show them how to use it. And then when they do the surgery, they're discharged the same day or the next day. They have the application already ready to go. And the way it works also, the surgeon will create a profile of the monitoring. Let's say I want a picture every other day or once a week. I want to submit your vital signs and also some well-being data. And that is a profile built per surgery or per patient. So let me jump in and show you so this is the patient profile, the patient application. It's a
Mm-hmm.
mobile app, works on Android and iPhone. It's simple to use, right? This is release 1.5, which is the second version, and we're working on version 3 right now, which is have more better flow than we have right now. So technically, the patient goes in and based on the profile, let's say you're supposed to upload photo all the time and also a couple vital signs. We can collect up to 30 vital signs and well-being data from the patient, but
Mm-hmm.
no doctor is going to ask a patient to upload like all 30. They're going to ask probably three or four. So
Yep.
an image, it's
And those may be different depending on the procedure, right?
correct,
Uh,
correct.
Yep.
So I mean, let's talk about orthopedics, for example. Usually they want a picture the first week. They don't want a picture every day or every other day, but they want data like vital signs and well-being data for the next 3 or 6 weeks after that.
Yep.
So in this case, this is already a picture of the patient. They upload the picture and they submit it. I have to look at different screen here. So, and then the next thing is we can go through all the stuff, anxiety. If the patient has anxiety, they can say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
So and the patient will see only the vital sign the KPI is supposed to enter. And we can go through all of them, defection, depression, fatigue, irritability, mental fog, everything. So that's what the patients enter. And it allows them to go back up to 24 hours to enter the data. So if they forgot to enter something from yesterday, they can go back and enter, but no more than that. They get
Got it.
alert up up here, let's saying you need to submit your data. You haven't submitted your data today. It's a kind of reminder. And right now we're working on getting feedback to the clinician say your patient hasn't submitted any data in the last 24 hours. It's up to you to place a call or you just say it's okay because they know the patient or they already communicated with them. So
Got it.
this is the mobile app. And then I'm going to load the clinician app.
The Yeah, that's interesting that the physician or one of the mid levels can just pick up the phone and call and say, hey, you haven't entered in your data, because that was one of my questions,
Yeah.
was how do you drive compliance with it? Um, I think people are familiar enough with the prevalence of surgical site infections
Mhm.
um, that I would think you would get high engagement on this.
Yeah,
I
so from that's a good thing. Engagement is always a key for the clinician. I mean,
Right.
with my patients gonna use the application and how often they're gonna use it. So when we did that for the first pilot with the Global Smile Foundation, compliance rate it was about 85%, which is
Hmm.
very high
That's great.
number. And I mean, we're hoping for a higher number. We never say it's going to be 100% because you're going to always find a patient that doesn't want to do that.
Sure.
Um, and the patient today, post-COVID, they're used to using digital health, using mobile app to communicate with the doctor. So they already, I don't know what's going on here. Let's see. So they are used to use a mobile app to communicate with the doctor. So that's improved the compliance. Now, it's and the biggest thing for us is to make sure the application is easy to use, not like to spend hours trying to load data, for example. Just simple to use. And the same thing for the doctor. I'm just going to see here what's going on here. So that's the patient, the provider view, and they will see the patient, list of the patient in front of them. And the way we organize them, if the doctor has more than one patient, they will see the high risk patient first. So you'll see here green, that's mean they submitted data and is everything is normal with it, or red, that's mean there's an elevated risk with this entry.
Hmm.
So, looking. So this is like the report they see. So the wound photo, appetite is red, dizziness, that's mean is red. They reported all this issue. And if we click on the photo, it's a standard risk, and usually they have all the photo from the whole week.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so
And the
what's
one
the
thing I want to, so on the photo, when they look at the photo, we're saying standard risk. That's mean we're not seeing any issues. And you
hmm
see in the bottom here what said agree or disagree. The doctor can agree with our prediction or disagree. And whatever,
mm,
and if they disagree, they enter a note, and that note say, no, the wound is okay, discharge is normal, what we're seeing. We take that data also to teach the algorithm again, what we missed the first time. So it's ongoing training for us. So it's not
yeah.
like we disagree and move on.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was my question was, is there any modality for the physician to provide feedback that, that over time this algorithm can become bigger, better, faster, stronger. That's neat.
It is because no wound doesn't matter if you, let's say, hernia surgery. I mean, it's almost the same, but it's not 100% the same.
Yep.
Sometimes they have to minimum invasive surgery. Sometimes they have to open the and do open surgery. And every wound looks different. Every wound is going to react differently. And one thing we have to look at also the skin tone, white skin versus brown versus dark, also going to have a different look and feel for it when we take a picture. So we are working. Are you familiar? I'm sure you're familiar with the Google skin tone models they release, like all the
Yep.
skin tones. So we're using that to compare, say, this is a brown and this is what the red look like on brown. So because if you're on brown and red might not show very well. So we have to take that in consideration also.
And it also, it also depends on the lighting that in the room where the picture is taken, and angle, and all of that comes into play,
Yeah.
uh, which over time the algorithm should be able to
Well, we
learn and
did we did
accommodate
that
for.
actually. We built an algorithm called the image acquisition process. So when the patient start taking the picture, we'll guide them how to take the picture. If you look
Hmm.
at it today, you're too close or too far. We draw
Ah,
a square around the image, and with line up green, we can auto snap the image. If it's too close, we can say go further, get closer, move right to the left. So we kind of guide the patient how to take the picture. And as soon we lock on the surgical incision, we'll snap the image right away.
that's amazing. What do you get? What happens when like, let's say a patient is identified as concerning? What's the workflow then? They go in, they look at the picture, and they say they agree. Yeah, there's a challenge here that we need to overcome.
So we
What's next?
so that's great. So that's part of the workflow and decision making. We are providing data to the clinician to look at it and follow the standards of care. We're not telling the doctor don't call the patient, call the patient. The patients do not know what we reported. They just upload
Mhm.
data because we don't want them to say, "Oh, elevated risk," and it's been 5 minutes, no one calls me. Then they end up calling the
Exactly.
clinician. So
Exactly.
we are providing the data with the prediction, and the doctor will look at it and say, "Okay, agree. We need to call the patient, or maybe the antibiotic is not working well. We need to subscribe a new one."
Right.
So that's it's a workflow part of the decision making, and it's end of the day, it's the clinician decision to follow the standard of care, not us.
Yep. Absolutely. They get to make that final decision.
Yeah.
Um, so, what does what surgical procedures is this indicated for currently, or can this be utilized on currently? What and then follow on to that question would be what future indications are you guys looking at?
So we can work with any surgeries except like if you have a multiple incision from trauma, it's going to be hard to try
Hmm.
to manage all of them. But the way we're doing right now, we go by surgery. We started with the cleft lip, cleft palate. We train it
Hmm.
also on general surgery in general. The next thing is working on the orthopedics and knee replacement, hip replacement, incision. So we train the models. We acquire between 500 to 1,000 image of a standard risk or elevated risk image, and we train the model. So, and the model does not take long to train because wound almost look the same. What we're
Right.
looking for, how the wound, like wound on the stomach will behave the same as on the leg. So that's the thing we're looking for. So we cover a lot of surgeries and we train the model as we go based
Yeah.
on our customer acquisition and the hospital we're working with.
Yeah. No, that's great. What kind of jumping off from the technology there, getting more into, the economics are such a big deal
Hmm.
in today's environment. So with the technology like this, there's usually, this isn't like a reimbursable technology,
Correct.
right? This
Correct.
something that the hospital is going to have to invest in.
Yeah.
What's the economic, argument behind it? I mean, everybody knows that surgical site infections can be extremely expensive. They can also be associated with a high risk of mortality and like coronary bypass, or
Yeah.
heart valve replacement, surgical heart valve replacement. But how have you guys modeled this to make sense for the hospital?
So you got it right. I mean, also you gave me all the value proposition for my product. So we put this in front of the doctor and say, you know your infection rate. Don't tell me that because you're not going to tell me it's not something so. And we built a calculator saying, if you use our application and you can cut down readmission and necessary office visit by 20%, that will give you how much money you were saving. So the way we do it is we provide this as a SaaS model based per surgery per patient over 6 months. Some surgery we're talking to hospital they want to monitor for 9 months because they want the first 3 months is the surgical site, and after that is the well-being because there's a long-term recovery from that. So and then we price that's based on per surgery per patient per month. And return on investment is when they can calculate themselves. For example, if they can cut down emergency room visit by 20%, and as soon as I step in an emergency room for anything, that's 20 to $25,000 going to cost the hospital to allocate a bed, a nurse to start the process.
That's right. Yep.
And if this is visit due to surgery, you're not going to recover that from the hospital, from the insurance company.
Right. Yep.
So this is paid by itself right away. And that's why we built the calculator based on the surgery type, the infection rate you are reporting, and what's the cost of MyHealthPal and how much you can save if you cut down by 10%, 20%, 30%. The unknown factor for return on investment is the office visit. Because today, when I come back to the office for 10 days follow-up, the clinician doesn't get paid from the insurance. That's part of the payment they receive. But
Right.
if I don't have to come in and they can schedule a patient instead, where they can generate revenue, that's part of the also return on investment too.
That's yeah. So it's opportunity cost on time, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
Exactly.
so they could potentially do away with a post-operative visit because they're seeing the wound. They're, whether maybe they follow the patient via the app, and maybe they do a quick 5-minute telehealth visit with them just to make sure
Exactly.
everything's good, but they don't have to book that
And
makes sense. That makes
yeah, and
perfect
also
sense.
we're providing a lot of data for the clinician. So we're providing daily data based on the required. We can provide a progression report, like let's say the wound looks good comparing to day one, day two, day three, or looks bad comparing to day one, day two. So they have enough data to look at it and say, okay, the wound is progressing correctly on the right path, or is getting worse comparing after the second day. so they can
Yeah.
make a decision to bring the patient to the clinic or not.
Yeah, and I would think by, just knowing infections the way I do, if the patient doesn't have a significant problem 10 days out when they're supposed to have their post-op visit,
Yeah,
it's very unlikely that they're going to develop one. Usually if it develops within that first 10, 15 days, right? Is that accurate?
it is accurate, yes and no, because first 10 days when the doctor tell you, be careful, don't do anything, stay in bed, don't do a
Oh,
lot. After 10 days, they're like, okay, the pain is less. I can start walking today. I can go jogging. It's okay. And that's when the doctors say, that's when what we heard is like there's a 30 days window when the infection
yeah.
can happen because
Yeah.
the first 10 days you're on drugs, you're in bed, you're not moving. That's the one day, one time going to happen. But when you start, you're mobile, you might do something to open the wound, or you're afraid to shower, that might develop some other issues for us.
Right. Right. Got it. Got it. Which would be theoretically would not be a surgical. It wouldn't be an infection acquired by the hospital.
No, no,
It
no.
would be
This
a post-operative at home. Patient acquired the infection at home, but it still impacts the financials of the hospital if that goes against
exactly because the
their
insurance
numbers.
say I paid you for the next 90 days to cover everything. I don't
Yep.
know. The patient never reported like other issues except this one.
Yep. Got it. Got it. That's interesting. Yeah, it's funny when you start peeling the onion back
Yep,
on what some of these bigger problems that hospitals have. The tentacles get pretty far reaching.
yeah.
What was was there any FDA regulatory pathway for this, or was it just an
S-
FDA listing?
So for us is we started with the FDA listing because we want to launch. It's a strategic kind of way. We launched product one FDA listed with FDA, and we only do prediction outcome, and that's why we can say standard risk or elevated risk. While we're
Hmm.
selling this product, we are going toward the FDA process to become going from prediction to diagnostic, and that's what require 510(k), and we're hoping to have the FDA pre-meeting hopefully in the next 6 to 9 months to get to start the process with that.
That's exciting. Good luck with that.
Thanks.
That would be a huge win to get
Yeah,
to be able to get the diagnostic label. And commercial status, are you guys actively selling now? And
yeah,
and also, probably good to touch on it. You guys are in the middle of a capital raise at
yeah.
present. So if you want to
So
talk a little bit about that.
yeah, from product point of view, the product is ready for commercialization right now. So we have release ready. It's listed as we said FDA class one. We are actively selling, and we're doing two pilots in the with the two hospitals in the Boston area. Hopefully, starting in January, that will give us more data and get more engagement from the surgeon and the patient. And at the same time, it's a chicken and egg thing, raising money so we can do a a better commercial launch in at least in the US right now. And we're raising the pre-seed fund right now.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I want to be sensitive to your time
Oh,
today, Talal. Really incredible technology. I
mm,
think we're going to see more and more of these types of technologies that help transition that care from the
yeah,
acute care setting to the home, and where we can follow the patient and make more informed decisions about their care when
yeah,
when they're not in front of the patient or when they're not
exactly.
in that acute care
Hmm.
setting. So really exciting. Appreciate you taking the time to come on today, and wishing you continued success with the commercial launch and with the capital raise. And look forward to getting updates from you on how things are going.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, Mike. Looking forward to keep talking to you in the near future.
Absolutely. That's it for this edition of the Bleeding Edge of Digital Health. I'll look forward to catching you guys on the next episode.